and then we'll talk about why the Labour Party under Corbyn has become institutionally anti-Semitic.
Many regard this inquiry as a whitewash.
Just 2 months later, she was suspended again.
This summer was tough.
Ali Milne, who said this.
You've been given plenty of time to do it. I asked you if you wanted to apologise.
Andrew,
and you haven't.
He said that the ambassador should not be someone who is Jewish to avoid the accusation that they have gone native.
And I learnt a lot. Isn't that a good thing?
My next section is on the culture of hostility that Jews face in Labour. You know that saying, that the comments beneath an article about feminism justify why we need feminism? Here's Jewish Labour member Louise Atfield screenshotting anti-Semitic or offensive comments in pro-Corbyn Facebook groups. There isn't a single Facebook group supporting Corbyn without either some level of anti-Semitism or dismissal of anti-Semitism. Public figures in Labour are insulted, with women receiving misogynistic abuse. Imagine Labour members treating racism against Afro-Caribbeans or Muslims in the party like this. Imagine Labour members using racist or misogynistic language against Dawn Butler or Diane Abbott. Imagine it being so normal that it's not even called out. The Labour Party under Corbyn simply cannot claim to be an anti-racist party. It has mutated away from being anti-racist. It is now the culture of Labour members to disseminate anti-Semitism and to dismiss it and even abuse Jews who speak out. But Corbyn leaving doesn't fix this mutation. This is because this culture does not only exist in online groups, but exists across all levels of Labour structures. Those who defend Labour from claims of anti-Semitism tend not to seek out evidence or counter-evidence. They tend only to discredit and attack whomever is speaking out. Don't like Tom Watson speaking out? Hashtag resign Watson. Or in fact, organise a Twitter storm to generate more attention. Luciana Berger, a Jewish MP who was pregnant in the second half of 2018, received thousands of messages of abuse, including multiple against her baby.
And just yesterday, an individual that says they are a member of the Labour Party, with the hashtag JC4PM in their bio, they've been on Twitter for an extended period of time, they've got hundreds of followers, this is not a bot that's been created, said, shame on Luciana Berger, a Zionist bitch, I hate her baby, her Israel. I have been subject to thousands of messages of anti-Semitic abuse and hate. It's sadly all too common to be addressed as an evil little witch, a murdering Zionist, that think I'm a Zionist lizard. Arguably more concerning, as we've heard already, is the rise of insidious anti-Semitic conspiracy theories, that I am an agent of Mossad, that I am a traitor to my country, that I am paid directly by Benjamin Netanyahu, or that I'm responsible for the Eurovision taking place in Israel. Influential Twitter users have wished good riddance to Israel's fifth columnists. They've called myself and honourable and right honourable friends the Israel Stooges Party, the Israel Apartheid Democratic Front, and so on. Others have alleged that Rothschilds and George Soros will declare their backing for the new independent group.
After Jewish MP Ruth Smeeth walked out of the Chakrabarti inquiry, she criticised Corbyn for not responding and criticised the way that he had handled anti-Semitism. She was sent 20,000 messages of abuse from Corbyn supporters in 12 hours and received a further 5,000 over the next few weeks. And what was the response from the leader's office? They tried to deny that the anti-Semitism was coming from within their own ranks. A spokesperson for Corbyn said no one responsible is a genuine supporter of Corbyn. But here's her reading out anti-Semitic comments that she's received, including from people who are hashtagging Jeremy Corbyn for Prime Minister.
First job for Jeremy Corbyn tomorrow, expel the Zionist bicom smear hag bitch Ruth Smeeth from the party. This Ruth Smeeth is Britanophobic. We need to cleanse our nation of these types. Hashtag JC for PM. Deselect Ruth Smeeth ASAP. Poke the pig. Get all the Zionist child skiller scum out of Labour. You are a spy. You are evil, satanic. Leave. Hashtag Labour. Hashtag Corbyn. Ruth, you are a Zionist plant. I'm ashamed you are in Labour, better suited to the murderous Knesset. Hashtag I support Ken. Your fellow traitor Tony Blair abolished hanging for treason. Your kind need to leave before we bring it back. Hashtag Smeeth is filth. Hang yourself, you vile, treacherous Zionist Tory filth. You are a cancer of humanity. Ruth Smeeth is a Zionist. She has no shame and trades on the murder of Jews by Hitler, who the Zionists betrayed. Ruth Smeeth must surely be travelling first class to Tel Aviv with all that slush. After all, she's complicit in trying to bring Corbyn down.
This is the hostile nature of Labour towards Jews and their allies. This casual abuse can happen in person as well. One witness said that they had sat at a table at the 2017 Labour Party conference with people that they did not know. The conversation turned to how Jews were subhuman and did not deserve to be allowed to define what constitutes anti-Semitism. And Jews should be grateful that we don't make them eat bacon every day. Here's a Labour member saying that to protest a member being expelled for anti-Semitism, they should march on their local synagogue. This next clip is of John Mann, a non-Jewish Labour MP who was chair of the all-party parliamentary group against anti-Semitism from 2004 until 2019. He received vile threats for standing up against anti-Semitism in Labour.
I didn't expect when I took on this voluntary cross-party role for my wife to be sent by a Labour Marxist anti-Semite, a dead bird, through the post. I didn't expect my wife, in the last few weeks, from a leftist anti-Semite in response to the demonstration, to be threatened with rape. I didn't expect my daughter, similarly, and have to be rung up in the last few weeks by special branch.
This is Liz, the Labour Party taking anti-Semitism seriously, McInnes, heckling Ian Austin as he slams Corbyn for supporting extremism and allowing the Labour Party to be taken over by the poison of racism.
Kicked the SHIT out of the Conservative Party's offices, or talked, well, she might not want to hear it, but I tell you this. Well, I'm not going over there. Well, I've explained why I'm not going over there. But I'll tell you this. I'm here because my vote and no previous Labour leadership would have allowed a party with a proud history of fighting racial prejudice to have been poisoned by racism, which is what's happened under these people.
Here's a video of Shah at the local Hustings saying that she believes in Israel's right to exist, and someone in the audience barks back at her, Jew, Jew, Jew.
Do I believe in Israel's right to exist? I continue to stand by my statement that I believe in Israel's right to exist. Thank you.
In 2018 alone, 33 constituent Labour parties passed motions denying or diminishing the existence of anti-Semitism. On screen are examples from West Ham and Brighton. You might think the Daily Mail would make up allegations about Corbyn, and so you'd write off the Daily Mail. And you might think the Tories make up allegations about Corbyn, and so you'd write off the Tories. But you cannot call yourself an anti-racist and say that Jews are making up allegations about anti-Semitism and write off Jews. One such motion targeted Jewish MP Louise Ellman, with her local constituent Labour Party scheduling a no-confidence motion on Yom Kippur, the holiest day in the year of the Jewish calendar. Hilary Armstrong, Labour MP of 23 years, signed a letter along with 67 Labour peers criticising the leadership's failure on anti-Semitism. Her local constituency party voted to expel her 2 days later. It's a red flag for your organisation that it's maybe institutionally anti-Semitic when its structures can be used to discipline people who defend Jews faster than its structures can be used to discipline actual anti-Semites. Which brings me on to my next section, but why is the Labour Party institutionally anti-Semitic? I've already mentioned the snippet of parliamentary candidates that Labour continued to allow to stand despite the fact that they had made anti-Semitic comments. But what about other examples from within Labour's structures? Pete Willsman was a member of Labour's National Executive Committee, the NEC, being in a position to hear anti-Semitism cases and decide outcomes. It was shocking then when a video was leaked of him angrily dismissing the concerns of 68 rabbis as Trump fanatics. And as a quick aside, just to briefly illustrate how narrow-minded and short-sighted this is, on screen is the list of rabbis Pete Willsman was willfully rejecting. They represent all denominations across British Jewry. You have rabbis from Orthodox, Masorti, Liberal and Progressive Judaism, Charedi and Hasidic movements, Sephardi and Ashkenazi, all united asking Labour not to ignore the Jewish community. One of the points of the letter was to say that anti-Semitism in Labour is a concern shared amongst the entire breadth of British Jewry, and Pete Willsman angrily stuck his head in the sand and clamoured for any excuse to write them off. After being initially suspended, he was readmitted into the party in time to be re-elected onto the National Executive Committee. A second, somehow even more damning leak then came 8 months later.
And one of these things about anti-Semitism is that they're using that to whip people up. They use anything, any lies. It's all total lies, and they just whip it up. I imagine I tell you, this off the record. It's almost certain who is behind all this anti-Semitism against Germany. Almost certainly it was the Israeli embassy.
Remember, this man was on Labour's highest ruling body and heard anti-Semitism cases and was able to decide their outcomes. Christine Shawcroft was head of Labour's disputes panel. She was forced to quit after it emerged that she had tried to get the suspension of Alan Bull overturned. Alan Bull was suspended for Holocaust denial. The General Legal Counsel appointed to oversee the disciplinary process had himself said that the cases against the party were smears and he had supported Ken Livingstone. The NCC panel for Ken Livingstone's case included a member whom had written publicly about supporting him. The NEC and NCC panels hold inherent political bias, with members of Momentum voting as a bloc. When Jenny Formby became General Secretary, she installed Thomas Gardiner as the acting head of the Governance and Legal Unit, the GLU. This severely undermined the GLU's independence in dealing with cases. Staff knew that Gardiner represented the office of the Leader of the Opposition, Lotto, and discussed cases with them. Staff were even told to send their cases to Gardiner before logging them. In one case, Kyla Bibby posted this on her social media. Googling the author's name in the bottom left takes you to a far-right website where not only can the original image be found, but you can find Kyla Bibby requesting the author to share a downloadable version. Thomas Gardiner fought against the staff member who raised this, saying no action was needed. And when the details of the far-right exchange were pointed out, Gardiner still recommended against suspension. This case highlights alone how Gardiner was unfit to be head of complaints. The Jewish labour movement's submission to the Equality and Human Rights Commission highlights many other flaws in the disciplinary process, and uses staff testimony to provide other examples of the leadership's office interference into cases. Testimony from a staff member says how Andrew Murray and Seamus Milne ordered the supposedly independent General and Legal Unit to reverse the suspension of a member, Glyn Secker, who had posted several anti-Semitic comments on the Facebook group of which Jeremy Corbyn was an active member. The testimony says that the suspended member was a personal friend of the leader's office and that Jeremy Corbyn was personally interested in this suspension case. A leaked email revealed how Andrew Murray had coordinated with members of the Labour leader's office, including Seamus Milne, to intervene in an anti-Semitism case regarding a member's defence of the anti-Semitic mural. I've raised Andrew Murray before in this video through his position in the Stop the War coalition. Seamus Milne was one of Corbyn's closest advisers. It is thought that he played a key role in Labour's initial refusal to adopt the IHRA guidelines. Milne would have likely have been suspended for his own comments, should the disciplinary panels actually enforce the rules. Another example of leadership interference was with Chris Williamson. Chris Williamson was eventually suspended in February 2019 for reasons I'll get into later. But after weeks, if not months of delay, why? It turns out the Labour leader's office had directly intervened to block the suspension. And the suspension only came about after the Parliamentary Labour Party took the unprecedented step to ask Mr Williamson to stop attending the PLP meetings. And the suspension didn't even last, with Labour inexplicably announcing that he would be re-admitted into the party. Following obvious and immediate backlash, they overturned it and resuspended him. Utter shambles. Following the debacle of adopting the IHRA with full examples, the anti-Semitism definition does not actually sit within the party's Code of Conduct on Antisemitism. Notably, the party's Code of Conduct on Antisemitism does not include the IHRA examples. This means that disciplinary panel members can choose which definition they follow, with one JVL member, Stephen Marks, saying that they may not use the IHRA definition. And then there's the Charedi report, which I previously brought up how Jewish organisations described it as a whitewash. One of the shortfalls of the Charedi inquiry was that it recommended against anti-Semitism training. No formal anti-Semitism training is in place, not even for the 2 anti-Semitism panels established in the last year. The Jewish labour movement were commissioned to deliver anti-Semitism training in 2016, but following Jenny Formby becoming General Secretary, they were frozen out. The Jewish labour movement's submission to the EHRC contains testimony from a Labour staffer who said that in 10 months of investigating and reporting harrowing anti-Semitic abuse, only 12 members had actually been expelled. Staffers testified that it was frequent for Labour's National Executive Council to argue against sanctions when they knew the individual. A member who ran a Twitter account, Gaza Boat Convoy, who tweeted and retweeted torrents of anti-Semitic posts, was reported to the party by a local councillor in July 2017. After 4 months of no action, the councillor posted all these screenshots on Twitter, and yet a further 2 years later and still no action has been taken. One member called for the annihilation and extermination of every Jew on the planet, and said that the Jew is worse than the Black Death, worse than the Ebola virus. The Jew represents pure evil. It took 10 months to expel this person. In July 2019, BBC Panorama released an episode with 7 whistleblowers reporting their first-hand evidence of the leadership interfering in anti-Semitism cases. The Labour Party responded by trying to write the whistleblowers off as disaffected former officials and threaten them with legal action. After the Labour Party initially adopted a definition of anti-Semitism that removed the IHRA examples, MPs Ian Austin and Margaret Hodge were both angered. Austin, who is the adoptive son of Jewish refugees, heavily criticised Corbyn, whilst Margaret Hodge, who is Jewish, called Corbyn a f***ing anti-Semite. The Labour Party took action against both MPs, both of which amounted to nothing and were later dropped. In November 2017, Labour covered up anti-Semitic death threats against Luciana Berger. They told neither her nor the police, and it only came to light when it was leaked to the press weeks later. There was also a time when Labour was discussing a rule change on anti-Semitism on the Jewish Sabbath, thereby excluding observant Jews from participating in the debate. And then, there was a whole set of the leadership in Labour who either called claims of anti-Semitism rubbish or support the deselection of MPs who call out anti-Semitism. First up is Len McCluskey, General Secretary of Unite, the largest affiliate union to the Labour Party, with enormous influence over the selection of candidates, the passing of policy, and elections to the National Executive Committee. Len McCluskey consistently undermined anti-Semitism in Labour, calling it a smear and saying it was just a tool to attack Corbyn. This is Len McCluskey, endorsing Jewish Voice for Labour within a month of their founding at conference in 2017.
In 47 years of membership of the Labour Party, I've never been at a meeting where there was any anti-Semitic language or any attacks on the Jewish nation. And incidentally, Jewish Voice for Labour has the Jewish people, the Jewish community have a fantastic history of progressive radicalism, and JVL are making certain that they're going to continue to keep it that way. And
this was actually the first time I'd even heard of Jewish Voice for Labour, a group specifically set up to rubbish claims of anti-Semitism. Now, Jewish Voice for Labour are entitled to their opinion and to say whatever they want to say. After all, only 93% of British Jews wouldn't support Labour under Corbyn, and Jewish Voice for Labour are perfectly fine representing the other 7%. But JVL's existence is used by people like McCluskey to say, look over there, these Jews support us, they support Corbyn, we don't have to seriously tackle anti-Semitism in the left or face any difficult questions. JVL's small size would normally make them an unheard of fringe group, but because of people like Len McCluskey and the Canary amplifying their voice, they've been lifted to a level of influence far beyond what is deserved. And McCluskey's amplification, as head of the largest affiliate union to the Labour Party, has had real impact. He even called for his union to affiliate to the Jewish Voice for Labour. People like McCluskey hide behind JVL when they don't want to address actual accusations of anti-Semitism in the party. This means that Jewish Voice for Labour are directly responsible for some of the concerns of anti-Semitism being dismissed. John McDonnell has also repeatedly sided with Labour members even after they've been suspended or expelled for anti-Semitism. Diane Abbott's constituency, Hackney North and Stoke Newington, was one of the constituencies which passed a motion calling for the deselection of MPs who speak out about anti-Semitism in the Labour Party. A Labour member in the room said that Jewish voices spoke up about their lived experience and they were ignored. Several members have told how Diane Abbott was in the meeting and did not speak up against the motion. Here's Diane Abbott shortly after Ken Livingstone was suspended and the Chakrabarty inquiry was announced, saying Labour doesn't have a problem with anti-Semitism and saying so is a smear.
It is a smear to say that the Labour Party has a problem with anti-Semitism.
You just set up an inquiry to look into it. If you haven't got a problem, why have you set up an inquiry?
There are issues.
If there's no problem.
There's issues about process, because there's nothing in the rules about anti-Semitism, racism, Islamophobia. We're going to make the rules explicit.
So it's not a problem, it's just a process thing.
That's the end of part 5. Here's what's to expect in part 6. Just hours after 11 Jews were shot dead in a synagogue in Pittsburgh, even if their only crime was defending Jews.
Chris Williamson is a very strong anti-racist campaigner. He is not anti-Semitic in any way.
What on earth are Jews doing in the gutter with these rats?
But that's not the bar for anti-Semitism.
Well, I'd give him 10 out of 10 because I respect him and I supported him all the way through.
And Zionism is the enemy of peace.
We're in the election period for Labour's next leaders, whilst Richard Berger said that Corbyn would make an ideal foreign secretary.